Israeli forces move to isolating the north by cutting Gaza in two. Hezbollah leader set to weigh in on Middle East war. China says official to lead a delegation in China-US nuclear talks. Egypt will help evacuate about 7,000 foreign passport holders from Gaza. Biden says, "We need a pause," after Heckler pushes Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Italian PM tells prank caller there's tiredness on all sides over war in Ukraine. Disney's ESPN could be valued at $24 billion. Kazakhstan welcomes Macron under Moscow's disapproving gaze.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Friday, November 3rd, and here are your top stories. The United Nations and former Israeli officers said Israeli forces were pushing across Gaza and in from the Mediterranean coast early Thursday, cutting the enclave into and isolating densely populated urban areas in the north where armored and infantry units were battling Hamas militants. The UN said it had halted humanitarian aid deliveries to the north, where 300,000 residents are thought to have stayed behind. The UN said Gaza City and northern Gaza have been largely cut off because of the fighting.
By splitting Gaza and fighting north and south of Gaza City, Israel has created a two-front war for Hamas. But that has also meant committing Israeli troops to fight in the north's difficult urban terrain. Former Israeli General Giora Eiland said Israeli troops are now focusing on finding entrances to the tunnel network used by Hamas's militants and seeking to kill them while they are still below ground. Eiland said Israel would also need to destroy tunnels that run from north to south that could be a lifeline for Hamas.
Hezbollah leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah will on Friday make his first public comment since the Palestinian group Hamas and Israel went to war, a speech that will be scrutinized for clues on how the group's role in the conflict might evolve. Many people in Lebanon are anxiously awaiting the 3 p.m. speech, rattled for weeks by fear of a catastrophic conflict. Some say they are not making plans beyond Friday, believing these remarks will signal the chances of escalation.
The speech is also being anticipated more widely. Nasrallah is a leading voice in a regional military alliance established by Iran to counter the United States and Israel. The group said it had mounted 19 simultaneous strikes on Israeli army positions on Thursday using guided missiles, artillery and other weapons, coinciding with what it called strikes using 2 explosive drones. However, with the clashes so far mostly contained to the frontier, Hezbollah has still only drawn on a fraction of the firepower.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said on Thursday a leading official from its Department of Arms Control Affairs will lead a delegation in China-US nuclear talks. When asked about a report that China agreed to nuclear arms control talks with the United States, the country's spokesperson Wang Wenbing said, "Next week in Washington, China and the U.S. will hold arms control and non-proliferation consultations at Director General level." The talks come days after Foreign Ministry Wang Yi met with senior U.S. officials.
Wang Yi said China and the U.S. will conduct dialogue and exchanges on a wide range of issues such as implementation of international arms control treaties. The Wall Street Journal reported on Wednesday that China and the United States will discuss nuclear arms control next week. The Wall Street Journal report said those arms talks would be led on Monday by Mallory Stewart, a senior State Department official, and Sun Xiaobo, the head of the Arms Control Department at China's Foreign Ministry.
Egypt has said that it will help evacuate approximately 7,000 foreigners and dual-national Palestinians from Gaza amid a call by Joe Biden for a pause in fighting to extricate hostages. The country's foreign ministry said in a statement on Thursday that Egypt was preparing to receive about 7,000 people representing more than 60 nationalities through the Rafah crossing that borders Gaza without specifying a timeline. Officials on both sides of the border expected about 400 people to cross on Thursday.
A total of 361 foreigners and dual nationals left Gaza on Wednesday after Rafah opened for the first time after more than 3 weeks of brutal conflict. The evacuees included 31 Austrians, 4 Italians, 5 French nationals and several Germans. Foreign governments say there are passport holders from 44 countries, as well as 28 agencies, including UN bodies, in Gaza. A trickle of aid has flowed into Gaza from Rafah since the conflict began, but until this week no one was allowed to leave the territory.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday called for a pause in the conflict between Israel and Palestinian militants Hamas in the Gaza Strip after a heckler confronted him at a campaign fundraiser. Biden was speaking to about 200 people when the heckler shouted, "As a rabbi, I need you to call for a ceasefire right now." Biden responded, "I think we need a pause. A pause means time to get the prisoners out." The White House later clarified that Biden was referring to the hostages, not prisoners, held by Hamas.
Biden's heckler on Wednesday, who told reporters that her name was Rabbi Jessica Rosenberg, was escorted out by security while singing, "Ceasefire now." Biden went on to say that he understands the emotions around the conflict in the Middle East. He said, "This is incredibly complicated for the Israelis. It's incredibly complicated for the Muslim world as well. I supported a two-state solution." The White House has previously said it supports a humanitarian pause to allow aid deliveries to Gaza and the release of hostages.
The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni told a prank caller, posing as an African leader, there was a lot of tiredness over the war in Ukraine and that she had some ideas up her sleeve on how to find a way out. Meloni said the problem was finding a way out that is acceptable for both sides without destroying international law. She added, "I have some ideas on how to manage this situation, but I'm waiting for the right moment to put them on the table."
Meloni's office confirmed that she had been misled into the phone call, reportedly by two Russian comedians, that took place on the 18th of September, by an imposter who passed himself off as the president of the African Union Commission. According to reports in the Italian press, the callers were two Russian comedians, Vladimir Kuznetsov and Alexei Stolyarov, jointly known as Vovin and Lexus, one of whom presented himself to Meloni as an African politician.
According to BofA Global Research, Walt Disney's ESPN Sports Network could secure an enterprise value of $24 billion and attract investment interest from tech firms like Apple and telecom majors, including Verizon. CEO Bob Iger has said Disney wants to keep ESPN and would try to create a streaming app for it by either forming a joint venture or finding a buyer for a minority stake in the network. That means a 36% interest in ESPN would be up for sale, assuming Disney intends to retain a 51% majority interest.
B of A analysts led by Jessica Reif-Ehrlich wrote in a note published Wednesday interested parties could include leagues like the National Football League and the National Basketball Association, newcomers like Apple and Amazon.com, which are jostling to get into live sports, and distributors like Verizon and Comcast. It said Disney would gain a lot from the deal as more capital would mean ESPN would be able to strengthen its offerings.
French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Kazakhstan on Wednesday on the first leg of a trip to Central Asia. Oil-rich Kazakhstan has already emerged as a replacement supplier of crude to European nations, turning off Russian supply, and an important link in the new China-Europe trade route bypassing Russia. In addition to oil, Kazakhstan is a major exporter of uranium, and Francis Orano already operates a joint venture with its state nuclear firm Kazatomprom. France also eyes on its rare earth and rare metals.
Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, where Macron goes next, have refused to recognize Russia's annexation of Ukrainian territories and have pledged to abide by Western sanctions against Moscow, while calling both Russia and Western nations their strategic partners. Asked about Macron's visit, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia valued its relations with Kazakhstan very highly. Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said last week the West was trying to pull Russia's neighbors, friends and allies away from it.
The answer for yesterday was A, condemnation. The raids have drawn a strong condemnation from the United Nations Security Council. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of China's official leading a delegation in China-US nuclear talks. Number 1, proliferation. 激增涌现. The quick proliferation of information resource brings a new challenge to information retrieval. Number 2, implementation. 实施执行. The implementation of the new software system greatly improved the efficiency of our business operations. Number 3, treaty. 条约. Two countries signed a peace treaty, ending a long-standing conflict. Next, we have a multiple-choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comments section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune in to Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time. 这次加薪的幅度呢，我认为会是落在10%到15%这样的一个区间。跟其他员工最大的不同部分呢，是我能够就像刚刚提到的，我可以在一个企划案还没有生成的时候，我可以先有一个远大的目标，我能够知道整个 big picture 是什么东西。不好意思。我的针对于这样的一个认可度，我大概有70-80%的把握，我可以获得升迁及加薪。
Johnny， 那个非常不好意思，我可能要在这边告知你，你已经被资遣了。对，是真的非常抱歉。那可能要麻烦你在下礼拜5之前，就是把你的个人物品先收拾干净，这样。有没有什么事我可以帮你的吗？那如果没有什么问题的话，再麻烦你把你的员工证交回给原主管，这样。好，那如果没有什么问题的话，我们今天就到这边。真的非常不好意思。
我可以知道是什么原因吗？
有同仁反映，最近冰箱的食物很常不见，我常常看到你在附近徘徊。我买的面包也是买了，然后1个下午就不见了。你该不会知道什么？
我不知道。
What we do, master your English and become irreplaceable in the workplace. Join Funday now. No matter your English level, we can help you elevate your competitiveness. Funday.